Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name's Naila Safira Marwa from TBI 1 class. Here I will explain about approach to research in chapter 1. Okay, when we talk about approach to research, we are really talking about the different ways a researcher can design, conduct and interpret an investigation. Judith Bell, in doing your research project, emphasized that while it is possible to conduct useful research without deep theoretical knowledge of all approach, understanding them help us make better decisions and critically read the research of others. The first distinction made is between quantitative and qualitative approach. Quantitative research deals with numbers, measurement, and statistics. It usually begins with structured questions and aims to produce generalizable conclusions. In contrast, qualitative research emphasizes understanding people's perspectives and experiences. It works with non-numerical data such as words, observations, and stories. Unlike quantitative studies, qualitative projects often start with broad questions that become more focused as the research develops. Importantly, Bell reminds us that these categories are not rigid. Many researchers combine methods depending on what data they need. From there, Bell introduced 7 specific approaches. The first, external research. External research is carried out by practitioners, teachers, nurses, managers, or others who want to improve their own practice or solve a specific problem in their workplace. It is not a single method, but rather a way of working that involves identifying a problem, taking action, studying the result, and repeating the cycle in a feedback loop. For example, a teacher may try a new classroom strategy, evaluate its effect, and refine it further. Ethical considerations are vital because the change affects real people. Everyone involved must understand the purpose and implications before the research begins. And then the second, case study. A case study focuses on one instance or small number of cases in depth. This might be a school adapting to a new policy, a hospital department, or even a single classroom practice. Evidence is collected systematically, often through interviews, observation, and documents analysis to understand process, interaction, and outcomes. The strength of a case study lies in its depth and its ability to reveal complexities that large-scale surveys may miss. However, critics argue that case studies may not always be generalizable. To address this, some scholars like Bessie prefer the term relatability if a study is rich in detail. Others working in similar contexts can judge whether the findings apply to their situation. And then the third, survey. Surveys are widely used in social research. They involve asking the same questions to many people, either through questionnaires or interviews to collect comparable data. Surveys are useful for answering questions such as what is happening or how often does it happen, but they are less effective at explaining why. A key challenge is obtaining a sample that truly represents the larger population. Poor sampling or poorly worded questions can distort results. When well designed, however, surveys can be relatively quick and cost-effective ways of gathering broad information. And then the fourth, experimental style. Experiments attempt to establish cause and effect relationship by comparing a control group with an experimental group. For instance, one group might receive a new teaching method while another continues with the traditional approach. If significant differences appear, the researcher may attribute them to the intervention. While experiments are powerful in theory, they are difficult in social settings. Human behavior is influenced by many variables, making it hard to isolate single causes. Ethical concerns also arise, especially when participants are manipulated or when children are involved. Large-scale experiments often require more time and resources than small students' project alone. And then the fifth, ethnography. Ethnography involves studying people in their natural settings over extended periods, often using participants' observation. The researcher immerses themselves in the group to understand its culture, routines, and meanings. This method has roots in anthropology but is widely used in education and social science. Ethnography produces rich, detailed insight into social life but is very time consuming and raises questions about representativeness. A single group may not reflect the experiences of others. Still, when carefully conducted, ethnography can highlight hidden dynamics that other approach overlook. Okay, the sixth, grounded theory. Grounded theory is less a method and more a strategy for building theory from data. Instead of beginning with a hypothesis, researchers collect and analyze data simultaneously. Emerging patterns guide further sampling and analyze until theoretical saturation is reached, meaning no new insight appear. This iterative process produces theory that is firmly grounded in the real-world evidence. Grounded theory is powerful because it avoids imposing preconceived ideas, but it demands skill in coding and conceptual analysis. Critics also warn against over-reliance on software tools that may oversimplify complex data. And then the seventh, narrative inquiry. Narrative inquiry uses people's stories as both data and way of structuring research. Participants share personal accounts, life histories, experiences, or reflections which the researcher interpret and organize into meaningful themes. Narratives give voice to individual and provide deep, personal insight into human experience. They can be especially powerful in education, where mature students, for instance, might describe the challenges and rewards of returning to study. However, narrative inquiry requires trust between researchers and participants. Ethical issues often arise when stories reveal sensitive or emotional details. Okay, last, choosing the right approach. Bell concludes the chapter by emphasizing that no single approach is superior in every context. Each has strengths and weaknesses. The choice depends on the nature of the research question, the time and researchers available, and the type of information needed. Importantly, researchers are not looked into one style. They may draw on multiple methods if that serves their purpose. Bell also reminds us that reading widely and consulting supervisors is crucial before committing to an approach. What matters is clarity, knowing why a study is undertaken, what it seeks to achieve, and how the chosen approach will best answer the research questions. Okay, maybe just it for me. Forgive me if I have many mistakes. And Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.